Welcome to the place where we inspire growth through powerful stories of transformation. I am your host and artist, Jessica James, and this is the I Empower Podcast. This week, we are continuing the jumpstart of season 4 with a woman who is inspiring us to keep moving forward and reaching for greatness. 4-time best-selling author of the book, Bitch Grab the Wine, and internationally published makeup artist, Sheraton Gatlin. Sheraton shares her powerful story of transformation and overcoming tribulations that most mothers would dread, and how she was able to turn her heartbreak into power by writing her story and sharing it with the world. Let's listen in to this powerful message. You have an incredible story of transformation. You defied so many odds and adversity to be the woman that you are today, and you're growing, you're going, like, so many great things. And so I just want to introduce you as I know you, Miss Sheraton Gatlin. Am I saying your last name right? I didn't even check on that.
Yes, you got
it. Yay. And you are the owner of Voix Belle. We practiced that before we recorded, and I said, I'm probably still going to butcher it, but
yes.
Which is, and you are a freelance makeup artist, but you are an internationally published makeup artist, and you've worked with a array of celebrities, which I'm over here fangirling because that's incredible. But you're also a 4-time best-selling author, and I want to talk about the book and all of the amazing things that you have accomplished. But it hasn't always been that easy. And that's what we're talking about today, is your story of triumph over adversities and struggles in your way, and how you were able to just, move past those to be where you are today. So thank you for being with me. And
thank you so much for having me. This is awesome. I'm so excited to grace your platform. So thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be able to share and to have conversation with your audience. This is amazing. I'm super excited. So thank you.
Oh, yay. And so I want to talk about how you got to be where you are today. I know that you have a degree in the arts, makeup artist. Was this something that you always saw yourself doing? Where did this come from?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So it's pretty funny. When I was younger, I used to probably when I was in high school in my younger days, I knew how to make myself look good in terms of hair and makeup. And I guess others around me, such as family and friends, just found that attractive, right? If she knows how to do her hair, maybe she can do mine. If she knows how to do her makeup, maybe she could do mine. And so it kind of started with me just dibbling and dabbling a little bit, just helping out with family and friends, a little bit of hair here and there, and a little bit of makeup. But I never seen it as a craft or something that I could make money in. Had I knew then what I know now, I probably would have started a little bit sooner, started kicking up the dust. But I started then. My family and friends, they trusted me. It wasn't until I moved to Atlanta and I started realizing that everyone here was doing something, whether they were in photography, artists, open mics, you have models, actors, everyone was doing something. And I'm like, well, where do I fit in? Besides corporate America, where do I fit in? Because a lot of people, we are in corporate America, but we can still be entrepreneurs, right? In order to be a millionaire, billionaire, you need multiple streams of income. And so I was like, where do I fit in outside of the corporate world? And so outside of corporate America, I kind of just overlooked or started looking into, I guess I should say, my life. What are some of the things that I do, hobbies, things that interest me? And I was like, I'll just give it a shot. I'll give makeup a try. I knew, like I said, how to apply it on myself, but I didn't know the basic foundation, the basic skills to makeup, right? And so I went to Gwyneth Mosby Makeup Academy in 2015. I got a certification from her academy. I was fearful for about a year. And then she always sends out jobs, Gwyneth Mosby, to her alumni. She's a makeup artist from she's been around for a long time. She did makeup for TLC. She did makeup for Toni Braxton. She launched the first PMAC Makeup Expo here. So I learned from one of the greatest. And so everyone reaches out to her when they have jobs, they have gigs, or they need a makeup artist. And so I just started finally taking advantage of offers. And one of the first gigs that I worked on, it was actually a film with Jasmine Burke, who is also a celebrity actress. I don't know if you have seen Saints and Sinners on Bounce TV or Drumline. She's in those films as well. And she had written her own film. And then on that set, I was able to meet Young Jock, Lil Scrappy, both artists and entertainers. Yeah, so it was awesome. And it also, which I want to point out to people, that came from me also wanting to serve, because that particular opportunity, it wasn't paid, right? So my teacher sent it out and I just jumped on it like, oh, I just want to take advantage of working on the film, not even knowing who I was going to run into on set, who would be there, who I would meet, connections that would be made, opportunities or doors that would be open. I just went for it. And so worked on set. And ever since then, I've just been running with it. I've been sticking with makeup, and it's opened so many other doors for me, which is the main reason probably why I've been able to dibble and dabble into some of those other things that you mentioned, such as becoming an author, becoming a master certified life coach. I think all of that has to do with the connections that I've made just from being a makeup artist. So I'm truly blessed. I am, like you mentioned, published. I've been published in the American Spa magazine, Glambitious, in the City magazine, Women of Wealth magazine. My work has been published. And so it landed me, honestly, in a place that I didn't think I would be. Like, I never would have imagined any of that at all. So I've been rolling with it.
That's incredible.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So, I want to talk a little bit, because this is really sparking some interest with me. A lot of times when we want to pursue a passion or something like that, like we're afraid to try that. But then also, you mentioned unpaid gigs and just, doing the work that comes along with doing any kind of freelance work, especially when you're first starting out. Like, how was that experience for you? I know a lot of times when people, they feel like they want to be paid for their work. How important was it for you to kind of move past that and say, sometimes having that experience under your belt can be worth more than the actual monetary money?
So there's a couple of things. So the first thing that comes to mind is the biggest thing when I started doing makeup in Atlanta was not only everyone else was doing something and I wanted to be involved and I wanted to find what works for me. I was also trying to stay busy. I was trying to stay busy because my son wasn't here. I had went through, long story short, this custody battle back and forth with my son. And so I just wanted to stay busy. But even though I was busy, I wanted it to be a good busy, a productive busy. And I wanted to have something to show for my time here in Atlanta. I didn't want my son to think that my mom is just in Atlanta living it up. I'm not there with her, that type of thing. I always wanted to have something to prove to him. So that's one of the main things that come to mind when you ask me that question. And then the second piece that kind of goes along with that is in terms of serving, when you're doing something that you enjoy and that you're passionate about, and I just want to be the best at what I do, right? I don't want to be the best at what anybody else does. I want to be the best at what I do, right? So if I'm saying that I'm a makeup artist, I stay in my lane. I specialize in what I specialize in. For example, I don't do special effects. I've done some special effects, but I tell people up front when they ask, you know what, I can try it. I can try to learn it by that time we film or we shoot, but hey, I don't do special effects. But I stay in my lane, right? And so I don't have an issue with serving when it's staying in my lane. I'm doing something that I'm passionate about, and I'm also doing something to perfect my craft, right? That's going to assist in making me the best, because even though you think you got it, right? Someone's always, like people say, doing better than you, doing it different than you. They're making it happen a different way than you, but I'm in my lane. But there's nothing wrong with learning from someone else. There's nothing wrong with getting better at technique. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Because the way I apply makeup is not going to be the way Susie applies makeup. We're going to apply makeup different, or Shanika, it's going to be different. We all do makeup differently, right? But that doesn't mean that Shanika or Susie doesn't have something that Sheraton can't learn from, or vice versa. And so when I'm doing things that I'm passionate about, I don't mind that. I've given back before to a homeless shelter for pregnant women, and I've done makeup for one of the women there. And that was when I first started. But just what I looked at myself at that time, like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. I'm just trying this. I need a canvas, but I'll give back. And I ended up, really making someone else feel good, and really giving back to the community as well. And so I don't, have an issue with serving, because that's going to open doors for me. When you can serve and you just hone in on staying in your lane and perfecting your craft, that's when additional doors will begin to open for you. When people can see that you have servitude and you have gratitude, sometimes we come in the gate and we just act like we got it all and we know it all. Mm-hmm. And no one wants to work with people like that, right? You have to still know that there's room for improvement, right? So I'm one of those people.
Oh, I love that. That is so inspirational, just because, I can't remember who said it, but my husband has said this to me before, that if you're going to give a service, you either give it free or you give it full price. You don't do discounts. And that difference in people valuing your work, they're still going to value it when you're sponsoring something or you're giving it for free. It holds that value, or the full price holds the value. And so I do love that. And I also love the fact that you just mentioned that it's a learning process and all the tools that you're going to get from those experiences. So not being afraid to take maybe those uncomfortable, like maybe it's not your favorite thing when you find out that there's this opportunity available for you, but it's an unpaid opportunity, looking at the positivity and changing your perspective on that, on what can I learn from this experience and what can I personally gain from this experience. And also, like you said, how can I be of service in this experience to help others? So
exactly. And that's the amazing thing about being a business owner, right? I get to choose. Yeah. I get to choose if I want to do free. I get to choose if it's like, no, I need you to book on my website. I get to make, that decision. And even now I have friends that are like, you need to talk to Sheraton because she doesn't mind charging her price. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's truly how I am, because I know when I give, I know that I give from my heart, and I know that I have given like books for free. I've given, makeup for free. I've had plenty of days where I did makeup for free or at a discounted price. And it's just a certain level that you reach, right? When you go through certain things and when you learn and you're continuing to gain experience and gain knowledge, and you're paying for classes and you're learning more, and, you're constantly working in different atmospheres and environments, right? All of that adds on to who I am and what I have to offer. And so, just like when I became a master certified life coach, one of my friends joked with me and she's like, whoop, the price just went up. And I'm like, it's truly, it's honestly true though, and so that's the thing about being a business owner, is you do have the choice to decide. But when you are a business owner and you have that choice to decide, will you decide? Will you decide to still serve? And will you decide sometimes to do things for free?
Yeah. And, everything that you're saying makes me think of, self-confidence and self-esteem and personal value. How do you think that those play parts in, being a freelance artist, or being a makeup artist, or even just being an individual who wants to do something, solopreneur or entrepreneurial? How does value play a key role in that?
That's a great question, actually. And it's funny because even being just a master certified life coach, it makes me think about my focus on personal image and personal development, right? And I think whether you're an entrepreneur, solopreneur, if you have an LLC, if you work for a corporate company, your personal values don't change, right? Your personal values, I don't change. I'm Sheraton. In front of the camera, behind the camera, if you come to my house, if you're talking to me on the phone, if you see me at work, I'm the same person in terms of my values. It doesn't change. Now, what I might change is my brand. I might change that. I might change my outer appearance for my brand, my look. I might change my makeup. I might even give you a little sass. I might change my attitude. But one thing that doesn't change are my morals and my values. I think that that's just who I am, and that's my character, right? So some of those things I've developed over time. And when you get to a certain point where your energy is a certain way, your character's a certain way, your attitude's a certain way, and you've also worked hard to get there, like that's a part of personal development, right? Like we look at personal development, it has multiple components, your identity, your quality of life, you know what I mean? So once I've worked hard on all of that, I don't want anybody to come and steal that or take that away, right? Those are just things that are who I am, that doesn't change. So I think personal values are important. It's important to know who you are. It's important to know what you can offer. It's important to know how you can help people. If you can understand that it's important to understand you overall. If you can understand you overall, then it makes it a little bit easier, as far as your personal values.
Yes, most definitely. And has it always been this way for you, or is this something that you've grown to be with the things that you've been through?
I tell people it's so funny because my personality is like on the inside, I'm like, yay, yay. But like I've always been just a traditional person, but I do enjoy having fun. My family and where I come from, I was born in Tennessee. I was raised in Illinois. So I come from loving family, a spiritual family, that and a lot of love, right? That's what I come from. I really don't know a lot of dysfunction, you know what I mean? And so I personally feel like those were things that were instilled in me and that have just continued to be groomed, over time as I've matured as a woman.
Yeah.
And continue to go through things and experience things. And, like like you live and you learn. And my mother always said, if I can't teach you, life is the best teacher. So I think just overall, everything, all of that just contributed to, personal values and who I am.
Yeah. And I think that, again, I want to highlight that life can teach us these things. And, a lot of times we feel like we have to know all the answers immediately or, right out of high school or whatever, but understanding that like life is a journey and it's a process, it's a learning process. Things are going to happen in our life and it's going to help us say, oh, you know what? Like, I don't like the way that is. And so now I'm going to hold that as, this is how I value this, or this is a personal value. I don't agree with that. And so, knowing that your identity can be molded in years to come. And, oftentimes I even, I tell people that I think that learning your identity is sometimes a lifelong journey as well. And like maybe your values and the things that matter to you and your characteristics will change throughout the years. It's kind of like that saying, like, once you know better, you do better. So like,
absolutely.
It's a growing process.
Yeah, and we just continue to get wiser. So that's so true. I definitely agree.
Yeah.
And then it's crazy because you go through all these changes and transitions and stages of life. So even once you think you got it, it's like, I don't think I want to be that way. I don't think I like that.
Right, most definitely, yeah.
And then you have to switch it up again. Yeah, awareness, the self-awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so I want to share your story of transformation. You had a moment in your life where things got, dark for you, and a lot of people, when I had this conversation with you on the phone before the interview, I resonated with it so much. And I think it's an important story that people hear, and it helps us realize that we're not alone, and the similarities and how you got to be where you are has a lot to do with how you were able to overcome that. So can you share your story of transformation with us?
Absolutely. I guess the biggest piece to my story, right, when we talk about, bitch grab the wine, and a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, you wrote a book, it has bitch on it, it's called Bitch Grab the Wine. And, and it's like, I told people that I used to always tell my mother people were going to hear my story. Right. Mm-hmm. And I used to always, I guess what's a good word for it? I used to try to circumvent my story. Right. We always, I don't have a story. My story's not good enough. And I didn't go through that. Oh my gosh, I didn't go through anything like that. So, we downplay our story. And the truth of the matter is everyone has a story, and your story matters. And the situation that I was going through with my son at the time, I have two children. I have two beautiful boys. I have a 14-year-old, and then I started all over again, and I have a 7-month-old. And so when I go through the stage of bitch grab the wine, as we just talked about going through the stages of life, at that time I had my 14-year-old. And so originally me and his father were married, and long story short, we went through a divorce and my son was residing with me. I used to live in the state of Illinois. I moved from Illinois to Tennessee and from Tennessee to Atlanta, and my son always was with me. And so long story short, when I got to Atlanta, it was, through all these different states working for corporate America, I transferred through my company, right? So it was great that I had a job. I had a roof over our head, vehicle, all that great stuff. But my schedule in corporate America, it was just crazy. I was getting off late at night. I literally was taking my 14-year-old to a 24-hour daycare. I hadn't even heard of a 24-hour daycare until I got to Atlanta, Georgia. And I was like, wow, so those exist. And so signed him up for that. And my son hated it. Really, he really hated it. He would literally stay up all night for me until I pick him up. All the other children are sleeping and he's looking for me to pick him up. And it just got to the point where he didn't have like a regular schedule for a 5 or 6 year old, right? Not the schedule that he needed, and we're mompreneurs, and we just know how life is when we get busy. But we also know as moms, we have to do what we have to do, right? So if you have to go to work, you're going to do anything that you have to do by any means necessary, because we have to make the money to put the food on the table, right? To keep our children taken care of. And so it eventually just got to a point where that schedule, it just wasn't working anymore. It was so crazy to have to continue to allow my child to suffer, right? So as a mother, I had to then make a decision to allow my child to go and stay with his father, which was one of the toughest decisions of my life. And some people would say, well, oh my gosh, I wish my child would go with his dad, or I wish my dad did, his dad would come and pick him up. And I it's like, you say that, but it's not until you're in that situation, right, that you don't wake up to your child every day, and that you don't wake up to them on every single Christmas morning, and that you don't wake up to them every single birthday. It's not until you're in that you don't realize the impact or how you truly, genuinely feel about it. And so, even prior to moving, I had been through so many relationships where, there's a verbal abuse, there's domestic, physical abuse, there's emotional, mental abuse, right? And so now going through this situation, it's like a spiral all over again of these feelings and emotions and, am I not good enough because I've already went through all this other stuff, right? And so now, am I just not good enough to be a mom? Okay, well, what if I just wasn't here? What if I just wasn't alive? Because who cares right now whether I'm alive or not? Nights that I just stayed up crying, in the bathroom floor, and just told myself, well, if I just take all these pills, who would care? Nobody. I could just take all these pills and nobody would care. Because if my son's not here, what am I living for? What else am I living for if he's not here? And so many times I literally would walk around my house and, just try to put positive things into the atmosphere, just that something would work out, just the pieces would be picking up, that it would just make sense. Like, make it make sense. Like, why me? Right? Why do I have to go through this? Why somebody else? Why me? Because I never saw myself going through anything like this. Right. And I felt like when we went through the situation with the court, it wasn't that I was unfit. It wasn't that his father was unfit, but the courts were like, well, since you let him go back there and he's thriving, let him stay there instead of doing the back and forth. So to have, I felt like my world shattered when I knew that, okay, now I have this better schedule. I'm working Monday through Friday. I have weekends off. And you mean to tell me that my son can't come back and stay with me? And when I tried to talk to his father about it, he's like, well, I don't think that's a conversation we should have over the phone. So I was never given a chance. That's one thing that I think hurts me the most, is just not even having a chance, not even having the opportunity to have a conversation. Right. I felt like that was just taken from me. Unfortunately, to have my mother have to feel like that relationship, which, they still have one, but you have to now go through, dealing with not seeing your grandchild all the time. Like, my mom would love to cook for us every Sunday, let alone now we're long distance from each other. But, so I long story short, I went through that. Right. And so when we talk about my book, Bitch Grab the Wine, and the saying as well, don't judge a book by its cover, because if you judge that book and you don't pick it up, then you might miss something. If you take a look at the cover, the wine glass is shattered. It's not a complete wine glass full of wine. It's a shattered wine glass, because during that time of my life, I was completely shattered. So I may have had a glass of wine and dropped it and shattered the glass, because that's truly how I felt on the inside, is I was broken. And so it wasn't until I kept saying, I want to write a book. I want to write a book. And it was like, okay, this is the full circle for me. Because had I not gone through those things, I wouldn't have a story to tell. And had I not went through that with my son, I wouldn't be able to talk to someone else that's going through something with their children. If I hadn't have gone through having to discuss parenting agreements, I wouldn't know how to help somebody else say, hey, do you know you can go to court and get a parenting agreement? I know you may not want to do that, but it's an option for you to make sure that you're in your child's life. So at the end of the day, I learned that the things that we go through, just like people say, life doesn't happen to us. It happens for us. And also when we go through things, the things that we go through are not for us. I went through that, but it wasn't for me. I went through that and had my story so that I could help someone else. So now I'm able to stand on your platform and talk to you, Jessica, and to your audience and encourage somebody else, because somebody else is going through a parenting agreement or arrangement as well. Somebody else is going through with their child. Somebody else that is a mother might be almost feeling like they're losing their child against a father. And sometimes the situation doesn't always have to be super bad and super messy. But as a mother that has carried a child for 9 months, and you have given that child life that has been given from up, you know what I mean? Like when you do that and all of a sudden that's just stripped from you, regardless of the situation, as a mother, it pulls your heart, you know, so you have to go through some things and some feelings and emotions along with that. And children love you unconditionally. So I'm just thankful that through everything, I maintained a relationship with my child. And that's the only advice that I would give the audience. If you are in a situation such as that, or parenting, just don't give up. Don't give up on your children, because children love you unconditionally, even if they don't say it. And you might be going through a rough patch. Don't give up on your child. You know what I mean? Like, continue to try. If that's on your heart, continue to give it a shot. You know, there are plenty of options out there, and it does take time. This was not overnight healing. I spent about 2 years that I could literally wake up, and if I thought about my oldest son during that time, I would literally cry in the morning, and it just tore up my whole day. So I literally had to try to pull myself out of that with positive speaking and meditation, self-care, self-awareness, you know, and whatever, you know, your faith is. That's what pretty much pulled me through. So when I wrote the book, I was like, okay, now it all makes sense why I had to go through that. Now it all makes total sense. So in terms of being, you know, in darkness, at that point, there was definitely light to the situation. Once I realized that, things became a lot clearer. And now, even now, as we talk about stages of life and going through transition, we still have bad days, right? So now I'm able to look back at the woman that wrote that book as inspiration and encouragement to say, wow, you went through that, so you can get through this, you know? And so that's, I guess, a little bit of my story in terms of things that I have gone through. Part one, anyway.
Right. Part one. Oh my gosh. Yes. So as you're telling the story, the memory of our conversation that we had over the phone just started popping up. And I remembered how much your story sounds like mine. And,
oh, wow.
you know, when I went through my divorce, and you know, and that's why I was getting like, I'm going to try not, oh my gosh, I'm getting emotional right now, like trying to talk about it. But,
it used to be that way for a long time. You get a knot in your throat, and I couldn't, you can barely speak about it. You can, you know,
but it's so important, like you said, that women share these stories of overcoming, because there was a time in my life where I didn't feel like I was going to.
Absolutely.
Oh, geez. Look at me. But yeah. And so like, I resonated so much with what you're saying. And especially as a mother and someone who that child is, I used to say that my child is of me. Like, yes, I know that fathers play important roles in children's lives, but that child is
You're
of
like,
my
that's
physical
mine.
existence. That is my
Right.
child. And she was and is my world, everything to me. But, you know, at the age that I went through the divorce with my ex, she's all I had going on. That was, you know, I worked my day job, but like everything was about her. And so, and we had such a strong connection, mother-daughter connection. And I mean, I don't even think the kid had ever spent the night with anybody away from me ever before. And so when we went through our divorce, you know, in North Carolina, now it is very much a 50-50. They just, you know, 20 years ago, it was usually the mother got custody of the child. And so mine's a little different because we were still in the same area. So we didn't have that struggle of, you know, jobs and things like that interfering with day-to-day lives. But, you know, when we went to courts and you know, unless the father or the mother is extremely unfit, and when I mean unfit, like has to be doing like drugs in front of the kid, like while the kid's in the living room and you're sitting out, you know, that kind of situation, or neglect. Otherwise it's a 50-50 and there's nothing that you can pretty much do about it. Like, unless you have like a lot of information that would prove otherwise. But anyway, so, you know, I remember that first week. I remember that first year of having to lose her for a week at a time. I had no purpose in life
At all.
And, you know, it was dark, and every moment that she left, it was terrible, and it would take days, you know, maybe by midweek, by the time that, you know, it's about time to get her again, I'm, you know, functioning, and then I get her back, and then I get that moment, and then I have to turn around and leave her. And I used to say, like, does it ever get easier when she leaves? Will it ever get easier? Because I would cry myself back home after dropping her off, and it would take days of darkness. And you do, you know, life. And like you said, just, I don't even know how I got through it, thinking back on it. I have, an amazing husband now who was with me during all of that, who helped walk me through a lot of the really dark times when I didn't think that I didn't care to wake up. I didn't care
At all.
And like you said, then you start questioning your abilities to be a mother, and like, you know, I can't even keep myself straight. So like, how am I going to take care of a kid type situation? But you get through it, and then you look back at it, and you're like, you know, in the moments when you're saying, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. And then you look back at it, and you're like, I got through it. And
absolutely,
if I can get through it, you can get through it too. And so I think your story is important. And I know a lot of women, and even men, you know, it can be the opposite, but you know, for a mother to lose their child, essentially someone that they are with all the time, it's hard.
Yes, it's definitely hard. I certainly remember the days of darkness like it was yesterday, you know, because it's just that painful when you go through it. And we went through and the crazy thing is, because as I mentioned, I had moved to Atlanta, Georgia. And so when I guess not really allowed, but when we went through that situation and he stayed where he was at, he was in Illinois. So mind you, we were 12 hours apart. So now I'm in the situation where I have to drive there or fly there in order to see you. I can't just pop up, you know, every weekend type of thing, you know, and then we all go through life, right? And we have financial issues and financial burdens. You have transportation issues, you know, and all those things that people don't want to talk about, right? Because everybody wants to act like they have it like that. No, at that time, and, you know, we go through stages where, hey, I don't have it like that. So now I have to go when I have it, right, to spend time with him. And of course, depending on what the arrangement is, you want to stick with that arrangement now. So, you know, it's like you go through, and we went through the same thing where I would literally go visit him, and it was time to leave from Illinois, go back to Georgia. He's crying, I'm crying, you know, and then it probably took about 2 or 3 years. And then finally, you know, it kind of started calming down. And I guess he was getting older as a boy and realizing I can't cry, you know, my mom's leaving, but I can't cry. And, you know, we kind of worked through it. But it was definitely tough. It was tough.
Yeah. And I think it's important too that we recognize that those feelings are natural, and I'm not going to say they go away, because I don't think they ever truly go away, but our coping skills get better.
Exactly.
And, you know, ultimately just trusting that, universe, the God, whatever it is that, that you cling to for your hope, is going to just work it out and
Exactly.
for the good. And this is a temporary, and even though it's temporary and it can seem like a really long time, it's still temporary. It's not going to be forever. Those moments, those feelings, you're going to be able to get through them. And I think
exactly
that's so important.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing, is being able to overcome it. I share with anyone, we do the best. The parents, we do the best we can with what we have, right? We don't have all the answers. Everyone's situation is different. Everyone doesn't have all the money and inheritance or whatever the case might be, so whatever is given to us and whatever is in front of us is what we have to work with. And we do the best we can, with what we got. And we all go through different situations. But I think if we could, instead try to shift our focus on maybe what the purpose is in that story or what the mission is behind that story, then I think sometimes we might be able to get a little bit more of a positive outlook instead of being so focused on the negative. But I know that's easier said than done when you're in it. Trust me. But once you get to the other side, there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm thankful, I'm thankful, for my story. I'm thankful for my children. I'm thankful for, everything that we have gone through. You have to be thankful for, both the good and the bad. And most of all, I'm thankful for my sanity and that I did make it through that, and I encourage any parent that, outside of doing the best you can with what you have, just continue to try to maintain that relationship with your children, whatever it is that you have. Even if you can't see them, and you could text them, if that's all you have, text them, if you can call them, call them. If you could spend time every time that you have the opportunity, take advantage of that. Because children, they also don't forget, sometimes we think they're not paying attention, but they are, because they'll bring it back up later and you're like,
you're like, wait a minute. Yes. And like you mentioned, with the unconditional love, and I think sometimes we take advantage of that word sometimes. And, I've heard it used before when we talk about, children who have experienced trauma or abuse or things like that, and how, some people will say, well, I don't understand how a child can still love that parent after the things that they've went through. But unconditional love is truly that. It's unconditional. There is, sometimes unfortunately, but fortunately, there's nothing that you can do that's going to make that child's love for you deteriorate.
Exactly.
And especially if you keep, if you make that child, or help, do as best as you can to make and help that child feel the love that you have for them. And, for me, during my experience of the divorce and the separation and the trauma that my child did experience from that, I had to keep reminding her that, why I did the thing, why leaving was necessary and why this arrangement was necessary. And it's because, I love you and don't ever forget it. And so just, like you said, just reminding that child that what they mean to you.
Yeah, because children will definitely ask questions, and I think you uncovered something great when you spoke about trauma, because I think sometimes we also downplay trauma, right? I think we go through certain things and we're like, oh, I'm good, and it's like, no, you're not good. It's okay to say, I'm not okay, right? And I think when we talk about, trauma, and even when we talk about that unconditional love, sometimes when we go through things that it impacts us and our children, the children are impacted too, right? So it's not just trauma for us, but it's also trauma for them. So you have to figure out how not only to get past trauma for you, but how do I get past the trauma how does my child, and how do I help my child get past the trauma as well, so that we can, maneuver through and get back on a good path of this relationship? Because deep down, I do know that they love me unconditional, right? But sometimes that trauma just seems to kind of it feels like it's surpassing that, right? And so I think that's important that you call out trauma, because sometimes that's kind of like the concrete over everything, right? And it's like, if we can just kind of break through that trauma and heal from that, and recover, I think it would open up the doors to a lot of things.
Yes, most definitely. And, when I was coming to the decision of leaving the relationship that I was in. It was not healthy for me mentally or physically. And in my mind, I thought, my child was I think it was 4 or 5, like it was within that year. And my thoughts were, if I leave sooner, that she will be less traumatized because she's younger than if I stay and wait till later. And, after reading an incredible book that I highly recommend for everyone who, just wants to understand why their brain works the way that it does, it's written by Oprah Winfrey. And I want to say Dr. Perry. I should have wrote this down before I jumped on here, but I didn't know I was going to bring it up. It's called What Happened to You. And they talk about divorce and how that works in a child's mind. And, when a child sees their mother and their father, they see them as one unit. And when they break, they see that as a brokenness of that unit. They don't think of it as mom, and dad. And that's why it's important that at a young age, even at a young age, my child has experienced, and I've recognized that her trauma from that experience, even though I was thinking she was too young to understand it, that it affects all of us differently at different ages. And, just really making sure that, you take care of yourself first mentally and physically so that you can take care of your child as well. And the fact that this has been 5 or 6 years ago, and I'm still, working on that healing for her as well as me, but more so for her now. It's rearing its head up, in different parts of her life. But, I was getting off on a tangent. I don't know where I was going with that but I just want to highlight that, trauma and, what you had said about trauma is that a lot of times we feel like, mine wasn't a traumatic event, or my trauma is not that valid because it's not, capital T trauma, but, all trauma is valid, and especially for our children and for us. And so being sensitive to that and understanding that takes time to heal.
Yeah. And children, like you said, they have questions too, when you go through things like that. And as a mother, you worry, do they understand? Do they get it? Are they okay? What's wrong? Especially if you have a child, when you ask them, are you okay? They're like, yeah. And you're like, I know you're not okay. Yeah. Or they, you can tell that something is wrong. Right. And so I think that it's definitely important to, for us to ask those questions. That was something that I tried to make sure that I did do with my son, especially long distance. When we got together, I would ask him, are you okay? How are you feeling? And even if I did feel that he was hiding anything from me, I would just continue to try to probe until he would actually share it with me. And there have been situations to where I gained his, trust. So he would share certain things. And there have been certain things that as a mom, I just couldn't hold it anymore. Right. And I had to finally say something or speak on it. And he understood that as well, and so I think that, overall, like you said, we don't think about the impact that it has on our children, because my oldest son would ask me all kinds of questions. We were in a situation where his father, was with a different nationality. So, and my son was of lighter skin tone. And so he would ask questions, and his hair, he had pretty curly hair. So people would ask questions like, well, is that really your mom? Well, is she your mom? And my son would ask me well, am I mixed, mom? And, it's like I had to answer all of those type of questions to the point where he's like, are you really my mom? And it's like, I was like, are you kidding me? So then I had to whip out the photo album, because we're going to show you where I carried you for 9 months, and that I was big, and I had the baby shower, and this is your crib. I had to, take him back through all of those things. This is what happened, and this is what took place. And then it's kind of oh, okay, cool.
Okay. I just needed that reassurance. Mom.
Yeah. But, children go through things too. And then I think in certain situations too, there are some parents that we get in these blended families, and they try to, make, children be included and feel a certain way, and, try to make children call them mom, call them dad, or that's your brother, that's your sister, and it's I come from a home where I didn't do step, I didn't do bonus. My parents, it was, I'm your sister, I'm your dad, I'm your mom, that type of thing. And so, like you mentioned, though, children only see brokenness when parents separate, right? And so even with the blended families, I was sharing with someone recently that sometimes children wanting to be apart is not an offense. Sometimes children want to call you mom or whatever, because they just want to feel a unit and they just want to feel some type of structure, and I think sometimes we just have to kind of see beyond the surface with our children and try to dig a little bit deeper, in order to have a better understanding of what is it that you're really asking me for? What is it that you're really seeking from this? And so I think that you made a very important point in talking about the brokenness and how children actually see it when parents are not together. I think that's a really good call out, that sometimes we can miss, because we simply think, oh, he's just mad I'm not with his mom. Oh, he's just mad I'm not with his, and it's like, no, it's not really just that, right? They could have seen more than you think, could have heard more than you think. They could be wanting more than you think, so it's a lot more to it. So I think you brought up a valid point, even though you thought you were going on a tangent. I was with you.
Yeah. You were with me. Good. I'm glad. Okay. Because sometimes I do that.
I was with you.
But yes, ultimately just keeping in mind that kids are very intelligent.
They are.
And like you said, they see and hear more than we think they do. But also just being that, catalyst to help them understand the world around them.
Even like my book, I told my 14-year-old, I'm like, you can't read it till you're 16, right? And that's only because writing it, I didn't want him to pass judgment on me or his father. I just, by the time he read it, I'm like, I want you to understand that your father loves you. I love you. This had nothing to do with you. This is mom's story. This is how mom felt. And it's so funny because I made a post on Instagram the other day about the book, and he commented like, I recommend you buy this book, even though I can't read it.
Oh, I love it.
So I'm like, thank you for being my number one supporter. But they're always paying attention.
Yeah, they are. And I love that you said that, in time that you would be open to having that conversation and allowing him to read that book, because my daughter has done similar things. Can you explain to me like this situation, like what happened here? Okay, we will have when you're older, if you want to know, and we can go into detail. But like you said, I don't want her to feel a certain way towards her dad. I want her to love her dad because the way that he is with her, just because we didn't work out and we had issues or whatever, like I don't want that past judgment, like you said.
Yes, so. Jessica, come on. Awesome moms. Because some people, I think that's amazing that we should applaud ourselves for that, because so many moms aren't able to do that, right? And you hear a lot of people that say that one parent is bashing the other, and I never wanted that. And so I think it's amazing that as moms, we try to ensure that our children still have a good relationship. They're not passing judgment on the relationship that we had, right? But they're ensuring that they already have their relationship and that nothing's going to alter that. There's nothing that I wrote in that book that should alter the way you feel about your father, because he's honestly been nothing but an amazing father to you. And I even write that. Exactly. I always share that. I even wrote that in my book. I have no problems with my son's father in regards to fathering. He's an amazing father. Yeah. Now, what I had to go through or what I felt, that's my story and that's my feelings.
That's your story.
But I have a cousin that says, you know what, Sheraton, I've never heard you bash him, and for what, as moms, as parents, as entrepreneurs, as women, what is that benefiting to bash the other parent to your child? You know what I mean? That's still their child. And typically, I've seen situations to where another parent, whether it's the parent or the step parent, has tried to bash the child, and it actually ends up working against them, right? Because again, it goes back to loving unconditionally. When children love you unconditionally, they can't stand for you to just talk about their parent and not feel a certain way, even if you are the other parent or the step parent. So most of the times that you try to do that, it doesn't work in your favor anyway. So I say shout out to us. Shout out to us for that.
And all those other moms out there that think the way that we think. Absolutely, your mental health is going to benefit from it too.
Absolutely, right.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. But I want to just real quick, I know that you have a family that you are ready to get back to, but I do want to just ask a few questions to just really, again, be a light for anyone who can resonate with this or find themselves in the thick of this, divorce and custody. If you could say anything to yourself, like think back to your younger self who was in the thick of struggle, what would be something that you would say to her? What would be your advice to her?
I would probably just pat her on the back and tell her to get up. She's got this. Just get up.
Yes.
You got this. You can't see it now, but I promise you that you got this. I think if I just would have just had a reminder that you're going to make you will make it, because that's life, right? Life doesn't stop happening. It always is happening. It's a matter of how you deal with it, how you cope with it, ways to keep your sanity, and so I'm just thankful for my sanity. So if I looked at myself in those dark moments when I was home and crying and no one knew and, feeling so broken on the inside, I would just encourage myself to tell myself that you've got this. You're so much more stronger than you thinking right now. So much stronger.
Oh my gosh. I love that. Yes. Beautiful, beautiful words. I think that, I know that I'm thinking of myself and I'm like, yes, girl, that is exactly what I would tell myself because you can do it. Oh my gosh. My last question is, we like to talk about power on the podcast and not thinking of that as a bad thing. How would you think of, or how would you describe the type of power that you try to step into every day?
The power that I try to step into every day is just trying to be in control, right, of my own life. Because I don't feel that, I guess the first thing that came to mind was controlling my own life and controlling my own destiny, right? I think that all of us are destined for something, destined for greatness. I think all of us have a gift. I always say all of us have a gift. It's just a matter of stirring it up. So I try to step into controlling the things I can control, right? I can control my attitude. I can control my thinking, my mental. I can control my emotions. I can control my spirit. I can control all of those things. So I try to wake up with like even now when we talk about stages of life and people wouldn't even think I'm not in the best place right now. Right. But I don't look like that. Right. I don't look like what I've been through. I don't look like what I'm going through. So every day I'm getting up, whether it's a podcast or gospel inspirational music, or whether I'm reading something, I'm doing something. At 6:30 in the morning, I was listening to gospel music. Baby Jason was up. I was up. So we were just, So that's the person that I try to be, is at least trying to be in control of those things, because there's so many things going on around us. And if we don't have control of those things, it's so easy to lose focus or to fall by the wayside, right? If we can't control those things. Yes. So I try to step into that power every day, is at least trying to control my intake and how my day is going to go.
Yes. Oh gosh. Yes. Everything you just said, I'm like, yes, 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 yes. Because ultimately, I try to tell my daughter, and I just try to tell myself sometimes, you can't always be in control of the surroundings. Like you Absolutely. Said, your baby waking up and you maybe you didn't really want to get out of bed that early, but I can control how I look at this situation or this event in my life, and I can choose how I want to view it. And I think that is incredible advice that I know I need, and I want to share with everyone that listens to this podcast. So.
Thank you. Yeah, this has been super fun, exciting.
Yay. Yes. And so if anyone's interested in hearing more of your story and getting all of the super details, they can purchase your book, Bitch Grab the Wine, and tell me where we can find that.
Sure thing. You can purchase Bitch Grab the Wine on Amazon.com. It is also on Barnes and Nobles. You can also go to voibelle.com. That is my personal website. It's VOIRBELLE.com. The order will come to me, and I can actually send you a signed copy of Bitch Grab the Wine as well. So you can purchase it on all of those platforms. Awesome. You can actually find me anywhere pretty much under Voibelle. That's VOIRBELLE. That's website, Facebook, Voibelle by Sheraton. And then I have my personal Instagram page, which is Share is Voibelle. But if you type in Voibelle, you'll find me.
Yes. You'll find you. Yes. And I will make sure that I link all of those things that you guys want to see in the show notes so that you just have one click, one stop shop. And yes, but thank you so much, Sheraton, for being on and being such an inspiration to me. And I'm sure many other people, your story is relatable and it makes me feel seen and heard. And I hope that anyone else that is experienced anything like this or finds themselves experiencing this, that they, take Sheraton's message and just really hold it to their heart, that you can do this. You can get through this. It may be tough. I think it's probably safe to say it's going to be tough, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and you are capable of all the great things. But thank you, Sheraton, so much for being on today.
Thank you so much, Jessica. This has been amazing. I so appreciate the time and your audience for just listening in and jumping in on this conversation. And thank you for having me on your platform. This has been awesome. Maybe I can come back again in the future.
Yes, I would love to have you back. Thank you all so much for supporting us with your listens today. I want to thank my guests again for sharing their incredible story of transformation with us. I've made sure to link all of their social medias below in the show notes, as well as where you can pick up that book. Don't forget to check out the art that goes along with this episode. You can view that at I Am Power Club on Instagram, or visit our website at iampower.club. If you personally feel connected with the art and you would like to purchase a limited edition print copy of that, you can do that on our website. Those sales go to support the podcast and keep us moving forward so that we can bring empowering stories for you each and every week. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at I Am Power Club. You can follow me on YouTube at Jessica James. Don't forget to like this episode if you found value in it. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss next week's episode of I Am Power. See you then.